great panelists here with us, and on topic of, is AI a digital revolution or it's a cultural evolution? And we all talk about it day in and day out. Where is AI going to take us? So I actually wanted to trigger the conversation with the excerpt from an OpenAI letter, which was signed by top industry leaders in AI, 350 plus industry leaders in AI, a few months back in Europe, where they basically said the fear of extinction due to AI should be a global priority, something similar to a pandemic as a priority. The reason I bring this up is, if people like Sam Altman, he was one of the signatories who actually created OpenAI, and several top professors in the world, several top scientists in the world are signing a letter like that, does it mean it has created some kind of a revolution which causes them to create urgency for the world to look at it as a global priority? So with that, I want to ask VLK, what do you think, VLK? Is it a digital revolution, cultural evolution, none? What's your point of view?
Thanks, Savita, and thanks everybody for having me out here. It's a great point, and I think it's a very, very relevant topic at this point in time, talking about AI. I think you can't, they say you can't throw a brick without hitting somebody. It's like you can't throw a brick without talking about AI and Gen AI. I have an anthropologist daughter at home, okay? And so obviously if I say it's a digital revolution, she's not going to agree, right? So I'm going to go with it's a cultural revolution, okay? Peter Drucker famously once said, culture eats strategy for breakfast, okay? So in many ways, I strongly believe that culture drives, anything, whether it is AI or robotics or whatever you want to say. So I'm firmly in the culture camp, saying that culture drives the revolution. And how we adopt AI I think, is more like a tool. AI is more a tool. It's not really a revolution as yet. That's something that we can talk about. At some point it might become, but as of now, I believe that culture is driving this whole process.
Thank you, VLK. Ram, would you like to add? What do you think?
Sure, I'm pretty opinionated, so happy to. Hi, folks. Glad to be here. Thank you for the invite, Amita. I don't believe AI is either a digital evolution or a cultural revolution yet. So let me start with the obvious and give kudos to AI for being the phenom, the tech phenom in the current years, much like mobile connectivity and internet were in years prior. Yes, there have been significant forays made by AI in transforming the transportation industry with autonomous vehicles, in transforming finance with algorithmic trading, starting to make forays in medicine with diagnostics that can lead to personalized cancer treatment and so much more. But these are still very targeted and nuanced. AI adoption is still nascent. The cost to implement an AI transformation is still prohibitive. The technology is still evolving considerably. Gen AI is doing a lot of pervasive automation, changing the legal industry, but we don't have a Gen AI stack that's a standard, and it's changing by the day. Not to mention the risks and operational considerations that are staring enterprises in the face. I don't know about you, but I haven't yet seen a compelling value realization yet from an AI transformation that shows tangible monetary benefits that have been realized by enterprises yet. So until all of those barriers to success are overcome, AI will not be a digital evolution. It's on a trajectory there, but we're not there yet. Now, with cultural revolution, I believe the gap is even greater. And I'll do an unfair comparison, but a legitimate one with mobile technology as an example. Mobile's ubiquitous. Billions of people over the world use it. It's changed societal behaviors from language influence in language. The whole texting slang and the tweeting slang is on account of mobile connectivity. It's changed modes of communication. Gen Z's primary mode of communication is a mobile phone or a tablet. It's also introduced new cultures, an extremely annoying but massively prevalent selfie culture, right? So compare that to AI. AI's influence is indirect, such as music and video recommendations, or behind the scenes in chatbots that improve customer experience, but nothing on the scale of what mobile connectivity does. So again, on a trajectory, but a much longer pathway to becoming a cultural revolution.
Very valid, Ram. I want to come back to the comment you made. You said it is, to some degree, a cultural evolution, still to be a digital revolution. So why do you say it's a cultural evolution? Like, what's your point of view?
I think fundamentally, I agree with what Ram says, but I think culture drives everything, right? The question is, and this is more like, which came first, chicken or the egg, right? So did AI come first, or did we, create AI, right? So we have a culture of creation, right? We have a culture of, constantly wanting to do something more with ourselves, right? So we invent something, and then we work on it, and that becomes part of our ecosystem. So that's the reason I'm saying, when I say culture, it's not about, some practices. It's about this culture of creation and culture of wanting to do something, culture of having a purpose, etc., which drives this. So in that sense, I'm saying that AI is part of that. So, I mean, just to add to that, obviously at some point in time, this question about how we're going to deal with AI and whether AI is going to be different, are we different from AI, or is it going to be integrated as part of us? I mean, that's still up in the air, but I still believe that this human need to, constantly tinker with ourselves and with the world is what's created this culture. So.
That's great. We were in the speakers lounge and discussing, and we became very philosophical, saying that we are basically stardust trying to find purpose in life, so we are creating AI. But we'll discuss that later. So if we believe that there is some time before it actually becomes a real digital revolution or a real cultural impact on society, where do you think this is heading, right? There is so much hype, there is so much buzz, everyone wants to talk about it. So where this is heading, and what is the practicality in all of this? Where does it have a use?
Yeah. So, but first, yeah, great question. First off, I love the chicken and egg situation. Is AI creating the culture, or is culture driving AI? Absolutely true. So we are not talking over each other. We fundamentally agree. It's not yet a cultural revolution, is my opinion, but again, the debate is there. But to answer your question, really it's about what can you do practically at every stage of the way. So let's talk about AI. The good news is there is tremendous interest and there's tremendous activity, whether it's VC firms funding a bunch of startups, whether it's governments investing, whether it's businesses looking at it, everybody wants to do something. What that is going to lead to, and is already causing, is a lot of volatility in the technology evolution. Number two, frameworks are being developed. The EU was the first. Now the US is developing one, regulatory frameworks, and these have to be industry specific. While all of that is being developed, there's going to be chaos. And chaos is not a bad thing. Companies will still do good. The ones that get to market fast and create that unique differentiation are going to be the mega millions winners, to use a US phrase. The ones that basically build on top of that to create what I call relative differentiation would also make money, but there are going to be a lot of people that fall by the wayside, as is the case with any new technology. The point is, you need to create value at the end of the day. And if you are pragmatic about it and look at it from what value am I creating, am I looking at things that are feasible and can create value that is not cost prohibitive and can manage risk, that's the pathway to success.
Thank you. You want to add to?
No, I think it's great points, and I think we are on the way to making something happen. And so my point on that is that at every point in time, something like this comes, right? There's always this, two extreme camps. One extreme camp is nothing's going to happen, and one extreme camp is going to change the world by tomorrow morning, okay? And usually it doesn't happen by tomorrow morning. For instance, right, when the late 80s, early 90s, there was a guy called Ed Uden, and he came with 4GL. And that was, then at that point it was predicted that because of 4GL, no more programmers are needed in the world, okay? And look at today, look at the Indian IT industry and GCC ecosystem. It's $250 billion full of programmers. So I mean, as human, there's many more such statements. Bill Gates himself had once famously said, who needs more than 640 KB of RAM? So we tend to sometimes, overestimate, underestimate, okay? We tend to overestimate the impact of technology on some of these things. So I believe, it's a long way, and I believe there are some fundamental things that needs to happen. In order for AI to work, you need to get your data right, okay? And in most places, okay, we don't have the data right. When I say data is right, it's not accurate, enough, it's not clean enough for you to actually have an AI model. So I think a lot of the industry is still grappling with fundamentals, okay? And even if you take an AI project, still almost 40 to 50% of the work/cost is in getting your data right, okay? So I think fundamentals need to get done. And to add to one more point which Ram said, I think one of the challenges with this whole thinking of how AI is going to change the world is, I think everybody is going to become a generalist. If everybody can use the same tool and get the same result, it's a challenge. So I believe exactly what he said, that ultimately the craftsman is going to win. The craftsman is a guy who will be able to create a masterpiece from generic tools, okay? And I think that's going to be the winner.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, Ram, you were saying earlier that you can easily tell it's a ChatGPT answer, and you can also say it's very easy for us already. So how do you kind of differentiate in your point of view, your opinion, your writing? So you are technologists, you have spent like decades in this field. Where are you seeing in your industry application of AI, and where is it heading?
Yeah. So we are an enterprise software company in the infrastructure software space. And what we are looking at with AI, we started on the AI bandwagon quite a few years back. We've got pockets of differentiation. Gen AI, we had a relatively early start. But for us, it's not about solving world hunger or things like that. We are not an AI engine maker. We are an AI app builder, only in our domains of expertise. So what we are doing is focusing in our domains of expertise to create specific applications and use cases that provide incremental differentiation and unique differentiation to our capabilities. That's what I call that the embedded Gen AI approach. And we are starting to see early results where our customers are enthused about it. And we also build enough guardrails around it to ensure that we address the risks and operational considerations to the extent possible. The data sets that VLK talked about, you want to constrain your data sets to absolutely what you want. You want knowledge articles to provide refreshed information so that it's not stale. But you still want to provide guardrails such that you minimize hallucination, not eliminate, but minimize hallucination. So those are some of the precepts that we are following to make sure that we stay ahead of our competition.
Wonderful. And earlier when we were talking, you mentioned about data, right? Data accuracy, etc. Earlier when we were talking, you were touching upon that there is literally like an industry growing because of the AI applications and the part of the value chain data. Companies are growing to just clean data, parse data. So could you touch upon your experience?
No, I think that's a data engineering problem. And when data gets more and more autonomous, comes more from devices, so to speak, then data starts to get cleaner, and then it flows through the system. So there are certain industries, like, for example, I think financial services to some extent, etc., where data is a lot more cleaner than, let's say, consumer retail. Okay, so those industries will succeed. Okay, from my perspective, I run a VC fund. Okay, and every startup. I've spoken to at least 300 startups in the last probably 12 months or so. Every startup today has Gen AI as it has to have it. It's like every resume has changed suddenly, and overnight everybody's acquired Gen AI skills. Similarly, every pitch has whether they need it or not. Okay, and the way we look at differentiators there is first is what's the problem you're trying to solve? Is it real? Okay, does it really need this tool? Right. Second thing is your data unique? Okay, if your data is not unique and you're building on a generic, whatever model over the internet, it's not a differentiator. More importantly, I think Ram touched upon it, when the frameworks are evolving, unless you know the basics, unless you know the math, unfortunately, there's a math problem or a statistics problem. There's not a programming problem. Unless you really understand the fundamentals of math, if the frameworks change, your ability to adapt quickly is a challenge. So when we look at companies that are going to be successful, obviously data is one part of it, autonomous, etc. is great. But if you look at, is it unique? Do you have a moat around your data? And do you have people who can understand fundamentals? If all three are checkbox, we believe this firm will do well in this AI space.
Okay. I have one last question. I'm not sure about the time. I see your point of view. You don't think it's a cultural evolution yet or a digital revolution yet. But do you think that non-digital native companies are digital native companies, do you think every company needs to have an AI strategy? Is it imperative for their future? Or there is room they can do without it.
I mean, if you look at it from a point of view of the art of the possible, you can make a case for pretty much everybody using it. I look at it at its base level, it's a productivity improvement too. So you can extrapolate it to a whole slew of use cases across industries where it can be applicable. The differentiation is what else can it do? And the legal industry is one such example where generative AI is going beyond just the summarization of a bunch of information to provide insights into now there are special firms that are being Harvey.ai. I'm not associated with them, so I'm not giving them a plug. But they are being used in some leading law firms in New York City as an example where their Gen AI application is able to provide a range of legal strategies for an upcoming case. And that's a great starting point for the leading trial attorneys to start from rather than going back to first principles of problem solving. So my point is, at a base case, it can be used across multiple industries. The truly differentiating cases, I think it's going to touch one or two or a fewer set of industries, and that's where it's going to be a game changer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally concur and agree with it in the sense, just because you have a tool, you don't have to use it. Like just because you have a hammer, hammer, everything doesn't have to be a nail, right? So I strongly believe that not every use case needs it, like I mentioned earlier. And looking at it as a productivity enhancement tool is probably the right way to do it. And there are some applications which is relevant at this point in time. I still believe that if you look at AI, machine learning is still a very useful and a very good technique to use. And my thing is, more important, just be relevant here, be up to date on what's happening. And then you will probably come across a very relevant use case. Don't try to fit the use case to the problem. So that would be my takeaways.
Thank you so much. I'll leave everyone with one food of thought. You said we don't have to use first principles always. Will we become habituated to not knowing how to use first principles?
Well, I mean, my take is there are three outcomes, right? The cynical view is the machines are going to take over. The somewhat optimistic view is we are all going to end up like the people in the movie WALL-E, where the robots do something, we're just fat, dumb, and happy and have a good time. But I am an eternal optimist, so I actually believe that at its best, it's going to get to a stage, again, don't quote me on this, where it's going to augment us so much that we're all going to become iron men and iron women.
To end it on a lighter note, there was this joke which says that, there's the glass, who are you, the guy who thinks it's half full or half empty? And the guy answered, I'm the guy who steals the glass and I don't care whether it's half full or half empty.
Thank you so much.
Thank
You've
you.
been fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.